B.S. Jallow with us here today. We also like to welcome the Chief of Staff and Minister of the Presidency, Mr. Maud K. Cisse, who is also with us here today. And also the Minister responsible for the Environment and Climate Change, Jatu Manjang. She's also here with us today. Welcome, Honorable His Excellency Vice President. Welcome, Honorable Ministers. Welcome also our guest today. This is a day that everybody's been waiting for. Considering the fact that we were in a transition, I'm not sure whether we are still in a transition. I think one of the most hotly contested topics is what they call the legal transition, the justice system, the new constitution, the post-TRC. We have the Honorable Minister of Justice and Attorney General, Honorable Dawda Jallow. Today is our guest who will now discuss about the constitution, the new constitution, the 2024 draft. And also perhaps some will ask questions about the 2020 draft. Post-TRC, the recommendations, how much have we achieved? But also the drive or the attempt to bring Jammeh to justice. Not only Jammeh to justice, but also those who were adversely mentioned of committing or violating the rights of Gambians under the 22 years of APRC rule. I think he'll also answer questions about justice, about reparations, about reconciliation, about post-TRC, but also about the constitution. He's here today with his team. I wouldn't introduce them. I'll give them the chance to introduce themselves and that designate their name, designation, and what they are working with. I'll give them the chance to do. So the program will be like this. We'll give the minister 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes, to introduce himself, tell us exactly what the sector is doing, and information that he wants to share with the public is the programs they are working on, their successes, the achievements, the challenges they are facing, but also their vision for the sector. Then after that, we'll give each of his team 3 minutes to introduce themselves, their name, their designation, but also what they work with. Then we will now open the floor for the public to ask questions. And the rules are very simple. One question, and we try to make it as short as possible, because we have a lot of questions. We take questions from outside, but also from here within the hall. Before I go, also let's welcome the Honorable Minister for Tourism and Culture, Honorable Abdou Job. Honorable Abdou Job is also here with us. We are pleased to have you, Honorable. Mbokk di leen nuyu di leen sant di leen dalal si beneen Mansa Kunda mi nga xam ne mooy programme biñ jagleel askan wi pour gis ne nguur gi waxtaan ak askan wi xam askan wi seen jafe-jafe ak seen bébét askan wi xam lan mooy ene nguur ak lan lañ nekk di liggéey kon moo tax ñaari semaine bu ne dañoo isi benn ministre ak timam bi yëpp ñoo jàkkaarloo askan bi te nag am nañ gan yu mag a mag fii si penc mi fii tey am nañ His Excellency the Vice President Mohamed B.S. Jallow moom mooy nay bi président bi su fi nekkee kon dafa mel ni président bi moom fi kon ñu ngi ko dalal si jotaay bi di dalal ki nga xam ne moom mooy Chief of Staff ak ministre bu nga xam ne moo amee wàllu presidency bi ñu ngi ko woowee Chief of Staff and Minister for the Presidency Honorable Maud K. Cisse moom tam ñu ngi ko dalal si jotaay bi am nañ fi tamit Mrs. Manjang mi nga xam ne moom moo nekk ministre mi nga xam ne moom moo responsible si wàllu jaww ji ñu ngi koy environment and climate change moom tam mu ngi fi honorable ñu ngi laa dalal si programme bi ñu nga xam ne ministre fii tamit honorable Abdou Job mi nga xam ne moom moo responsible si mbiri gan yu ñëw ñu ngi koy tourisme ak aar bi honorable Abdou Job ñu ngi laa dalal te nag suñ gan gu màgga mi nga xam ne moo ñëw pour jàkkaarloo askan bi honorable minister for Justice and Attorney General ki nga xam ne moo amee wàllu luwaa bi mooy honorable minister Dawda Jallow te moom mooy suñ gan bi tey moo ñëw pour jàkkaarloo askan bi waxtaan ak askan bi li nga xam ne mooy dox si secteur si liggéeyam lan lañ nekk di def lan lañ amal askan bi lan mooy seen éene ak seen pas-pas pour askan bi tamit am nañ chance pour jàkkaarloog ministre bi pour laaj leen laaj yoo xam ne moom mooy seen laajte moom mooy li nga xam ne bëgg nañ koo xam si mbiri loi si mbiri constitution bu es bi ak si mbiri li nga xam ne wécci moo am si wàllum loi depuis bu fi yaa Jammeh génnee kon tey waxtaan bi dina neex torop moom tam ñëw naa ak tiimam bi fii yëpp buguma wax ñom team bi sen tour ak li ñoo def wa ñom dinañ ko waal sen bopa su boba duma joom si turi ak si la moy sen liggéey ñom dinañ leen jox chance ku nekk nga wax la moy sen sa tour ak li nga liggéey su boba mo leer si askan bi mbadi ngol mbal tentula mbal jela mbal nimbara la bake fang mbal jiala bi na Mansa Kunda program yanon ko nga de dale pour kajo ko banku dingol ni Mansa Kunda si kachano isa de filo kanake Mansa Kunda sina kafa banku dingol mundo ku sifa la munela nganiyoti aning e muna sodo banku dingol ye banku dingol fanansi Mansa Kunda nyininka e mundo ku sifa la e la solo munati anila jahal kol wala nga nyim programme ran ka fa Mansa Kunda nka ke lokum fula bidu ngaluntam balle sodo jang follow vice president his excellency Mohamed BS Jallow president fa la naibo wala president la nomanko afango bijam bi mba jala bake fang woton sa fa his excellency president mbi jala abarka bake vice president min fanam bijam bi ka fa Hon.Dawda Jallow Cissé atalo ministre mi alan ko atele maralen president la bundala atelo fanam mo chief of staff ti afanam bijam bi mba fanan jiala Honorable Mrs. Manjang fanan atele maralik alhawa bundala e kafa environment and climate change Honorable Manjang mbi tentula mbi jela ila na nyala mbi jiala fanan Mansa Kunda program oto na minister mi alago maralik toris la bundala aning ado bunda e kafa Honorable Abdou Diop afanan fele siri mbi kafo kono bi anata kana ka program o sementu ya afanan mba jiala program oto mba fala barka balunta ngam yalan ko bi wolon fon lunta wonti bi yalan ko lewi naning banku dingole kacha e kafa Hon.Dawda Jallow atolo ministre mi yalan ko marali loi bundala fa nga fe mi yalan ko loi la kolon fodum bankola kitabu kuto mi yalan ko le kana fintala kolon bang fodum TRC recommendation mi yalan ko Mansa Kunda nya ka implement ala kolon bang fodum ka jamme fenan justice ani mo mi yalan ko wole tilimbalya terindi Gambia dingol la kabrin jamme be nun jang ila ko fanan ila justice ko wo bebi mba kacala woto programme bi ak kumata bake abe diala bankudu ngol fa nga fem yalon ko filolon num al mam yalon ka ma faham num bi abebe kolale ko e ka fa nyaade ko kilo ka koy nyaamen woto bi kacabe diala bake bilong Mansa Kunda fuloti 2025 kono journalist sol bijanne bankudu ngol bijanne student sol bijanne fa nga fem yalon ko bi ye ngani soto pour kala mo be kering bi janne pour fana be live le QTV ba bonika live JTS ba bonika live anin Paradise TV anin Star TV anin Africa TV anin Fato Network goto hanni man tara jang e be Gambia dawoda wal dunia kono dawoda be nyim programme mo jube kan nyinin karo fana bebulu isa kino nga number case kino to isi ko nyinin karo kena melon ko si minister nyinin ka minister fana be yang anala do ku nyol mialan ko wolde ka dima ministry nyinto ntewol fa introduce la mbabule fa ngay fa introduce programo dum ministre be diam la minute muang afana ya fonne banku dingole abe mundo ku sifal la na bota wala ala min ani mi be silo ka sila normalan ko fanansi famfo ani mundo ku sifal la ani tolni kontongol ni be munne do kula ne bota je science na kacha dayele ninjinin karo bebulu isi minister nyininka nama jabe no anime be slogan wol sa jabe ka fala technician ol odon ba tentola mba jela nyininka duna o sitan kana jam fandi momo nyininka killing be wala tala nyininka ro sa sutane ba wato mon so do jandin talantang nyanda ka bo janne ba 10 o'clock news tan kana o tala baraka bake mba tentola mba jela honorable minister of justice and attorney general, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister for Information, our host, Your Excellency, the Vice President of the Republic of the Gambia, Honorable Cabinet Ministers who are here present, come to grace our own Mansa Kunda program, that of the Ministry of Justice, the staff of the Ministry and Oversight Institutions who are here present, the esteemed attendees, ladies and gentlemen. The Office of the Attorney General and Minister of Justice is one of the oldest ministries within the government, with the current Attorney General being the 21st holder of this office since independence. Constitutionally, the Attorney General serves as the primary legal advisor to the government representing the state's interests in legal matters and defending them in all courts within the Gambia and outside of the Gambia. As Attorney General, my responsibility is to ensure that the legal advice provided to the government is practical, solution-oriented, and tailored to be most beneficial to the various sectors. Government lawyers play a crucial role in assisting ministers and state officials to achieve their policy goals while ensuring that proper procedures are followed and necessary authorizations are obtained. Contrary to a common misconception, our work at the Attorney General's chambers goes far beyond courtroom engagements. The Ministry of Justice executes its responsibilities. The Ministry of Justice executes its responsibilities through various departments and units, and the following are among those departments: the Civil Litigation and International Law Department, Criminal Prosecution Department, Curator of Interstate Department, Registrar General's Department, Registrar of Companies Department, and Legislative Drafting Department. We start with the Civil Litigation and International Law Department. The Civil Litigation and International Law Department is responsible for delivering legal services to the government in the areas of public, private, administrative, constitutional, and international law. Additionally, the department extends its legal services to government, ministries, departments, agencies, and the Gambians' overseas missions, prioritizing the principles of rule of law, good governance, and justice for all. Under the guidance of the Attorney General, along with the Solicitor General and Legal Secretary, the department represents the government of the Gambia in all national, regional, and international courts and tribunals. As a key part of the Attorney General's office, it plays a vital role in assisting the Attorney General in fulfilling its duty as the government's chief legal advisor. The department is led by a director, staffed by various categories of state counsel. The Criminal Prosecution Department. The Criminal Prosecution Department is responsible for the criminal prosecution of all cases in the superior courts, and in some instances handles the prosecution of serious criminal cases in the magistrates and children's court. The department is also responsible for providing legal advice and opinions to the police and other institutions and agencies conferred with prosecution or prosecutorial powers. The department is headed by a director of public prosecution who is assisted by a deputy and a team of lawyers and legal clerks. The Curator of Interstate Estate Department. The Curator of Interstate Estates Department is headed by a Curator of Interstate Estate, whose office is established under Section 3 of the Interstate Estate Act. The Curator is responsible for the management and administration of estates and interstate estates, testate estates where the Curator is appointed as executor, and testate estates where the letters of administration with a will annexed has not been obtained within 6 months of the death of the testator. Registrar General's Department. The Registrar General's Department is headed by a Registrar General. The Registrar General has oversight responsibilities for the following 3 units: the Intellectual Property Registry, the Deeds Registry, and the Marriages Registry. The Intellectual Property Registry. The mandate of this unit under the Registrar General is currently being reviewed, expanded, and unified into a single comprehensive legislation known as the Intellectual Property Bill, which is now under consideration at the National Assembly. Once enacted, the new IP Act will repeal the Industrial Property Act 2007, the Industrial Property Amendment Act 2015, and the Copyright Act of 2004. It will also domesticate and incorporate provisions for the registration of intellectual property rights in line with the World Intellectual Property Organization, WIPO, and the African Regional Intellectual Property Organization called or known as ARIPO. The Intellectual Property Automation System, IPAS, serves as the database used by this unit to manage all industrial property rights in the country. The second unit under the purview of the Registrar General is the Deeds Registry. The Deeds Registry is established under Section 3 of the Lands Registration of Deeds Act 1980. The documents to be registered under the purview of the Act include deeds, conveyances, wills, contracts, and other instruments affecting land, tenements, and hereditaments in the Gambia. The Registrar General has a statutory duty to register and maintain the integrity of the originals of the records and provide certified true copies where required. Furthermore, the documents registered at the Deeds Registry are deemed to be in legal custody, and the extracts of which can be used as evidence before the courts and notice to the whole world. And the final registry under the Registrar General is the Marriage Registry. The Registrar General is also responsible for the conduct and administration of civil marriages in accordance with the Civil Marriages Act. The Registrar General also maintains a register of marriages, authentication certificates for marriages celebrated under the Christian Marriages Act and the Muslim Marriages and Divorce Act. Companies Department. The Companies Department is led by a Registrar of Companies, who oversees the administration of the Companies Registry in accordance with the Companies Act 2013 and the Single Window Business Registry Act of the same year, 2013. The Registrar is also tasked with the monitoring and enforcing compliance with the provisions of the 3 acts among the company operators. As the custodian of all records and documents relating to company operations in the Gambia, the Registrar is the authority obligated to ensure that efficient operations, efficient management, security, and integrity, and timely access to company records. Assisting in this is the Assistant Registrar, inspectors, support staff, and all working together to ensure the effective operation of the company's registry. Then we have the Legislative Drafting Department. So you're beginning to see that the Ministry of Justice is just more than going to court. We do a lot of work behind the scene other than just going to court. Legislative Drafting Department. The Legislative Drafting Department is led by a Parliamentary Council and tasked with drafting all legislative instruments on behalf of the government. This role includes participating in consultative meetings to develop government legislative policies, The Legislative Drafting Department is led by the Parliamentary Council and is tasked with drafting all legislation instruments on behalf of the government. This role includes participating in consultative meetings to develop government legislative policies, assisting in the preparation of cabinet papers, and drafting all bills, subsidiary legislations, and legal notices. In performing its duties, the Legislative Drafting Department advises all government institutions on matters that may result in legislative proposals. Officers from this department also attend National Assembly sessions and standing committee meetings to clarify issues arising from bills presented to the National Assembly. The department is crucial in facilitating the implementation of government's legislative program. Supporting the Parliamentary Council are principal legislative draft persons, senior legislative draft persons, legislative draft persons, and pupil state council. Until recently, the department faced significant capacity challenges due to the overwhelming demand and the government's ambitious legislative reform agenda. However, with recent technical assistance from Nigeria and sponsorship for staff to pursue relevant trainings, the drafting department is now better equipped to meet these demands. The Ministry of Justice is supported by several independent institutions in fulfilling its statutory responsibilities. That is in addition to the departments that I've already mentioned. These responsibilities include promoting and protecting human rights, implementing the government's international obligations to treaty bodies, and upholding the rule of law and the state's fundamental values. While these institutions operate independently and have distinct statutory functions from the Ministry of Justice itself, the ministry provides ministerial oversight, particularly in matters requiring cabinet and parliamentary interventions. The institutions under the Ministry of Justice oversight include the Alternative Dispute Resolution Secretariat, the National Agency Against Trafficking in Persons, the National Agency for Legal Aid, the Law Reform Commission, and the National Council for Law Reporting. The Alternative Dispute Resolution Secretariat. The Alternative Dispute Resolution Act of 2005 established the ADRS with the objective of providing an alternative dispute resolution system in the Gambia, in conformity with international rules on arbitration, conciliation, and mediation. The ADRS has a very important function in providing an alternative to adversarial court system. The overall objective is to facilitate access to justice in a speedy, efficient, and more conciliatory environment. The Law Reform Commission. The Law Reform Commission of 4 members and the chairperson of the commission. It consists of 4 members and a chairperson. The commission is established under Section 3.1 of the Law Reform Commission Act of 1983. The functions of the commission are spelled out in Section 4 of the Act includes to study and keep under constant review the statutes and other laws comprising the laws of the Gambia, with a view to making recommendations for their improvement and modernization. The statutory mandate of the Commission imposes on it a crucial obligation for the development of the law in the Gambia. This should ensure that the laws reflect the current economic, social, cultural context in the Gambia. The National Council for Law Reporting. The Council is established under Section 3 of the National Council for Law Reporting Act of 1995. The functions of the councils are prescribed under Section 4 as follows: mainly, to prepare and publish a report to be known as the Law Reports of the Gambia, containing the judgments, rulings, and opinions of the superior courts. And finally, to prepare other publications that may be conveniently prepared and published together with the reports. the National Agency Against Trafficking in Persons. The agency was established under Section 3 of the Trafficking in Persons Act of 2007. Section 14 grants the agency broad powers and responsibilities to combat human trafficking. This encompasses prevention, protection, partnership, and the prosecution of offenders. In fulfilling its mandate, the agency is also responsible for initiating measures to inform and educate the public, including potential victims, about the causes and effects of human trafficking. Additionally, it seeks to implement strategies to reduce the demand for commercial sex and international sex tourism. The Act also outlines guidelines and procedures for identifying, investigating, and prosecuting perpetrators of human trafficking. National Agency for Legal Aid. The agency was established under Section 3 of the Legal Aid Act of 2008. Under Section 14(1), the agency is given the responsibility to administer provisions of the legal aid according to the Act, and to provide advice to those entitled to it. The agency plays a crucial role in upholding Section 24(3)(d) of the Constitution of the Republic of the Gambia, which states that individuals charged with offenses punishable by death or life imprisonment have the right to legal aid at the state's expense. Additionally, Section 72(1) of the Children's Act ensures that a child is entitled to legal aid in proceedings brought by or on behalf of the child in the children's court to exercise their rights. These are the departments within the ministry and the oversight institutions that we have ministerial responsibility over. The Ministry of Justice has developed a strategic plan covering years 2023 to 2027. The primary aim of this strategic plan is to enhance and guide the ministry in fulfilling its statutory duties, aiming to become a knowledge-based, service-oriented institution capable of providing competent legal advice to the government, serving the public, and empowering citizens to exercise their rights and access to justice. Following the change of government in 2017, the ministry, in addition to carrying out its core functions, has also taken on the responsibility of leading the country's transitional justice process. Notable aspects of this process include establishment of various ad hoc commissions, such as the Janneh Commission, the Constitutional Review Commission, and the Truth, Reconciliation, and Reparations Commission. Additionally, more permanent and semi-permanent commissions have been established, such as the Human Rights Commission and the Victims Commission, with plans underway for the Peace and Reconciliation Commission very soon. This expanded role has placed considerable pressure on the Attorney General's chambers and the Ministry of Justice, leading to the creation of a special unit under the ministry known as the Post-TRC Unit. Further details about this unit will be heard later on this evening, as some of the heads of department that are with me today will be explaining to you their various mandates. I'm not too sure how much have I done well with the 20 minutes, with the 15 minutes. I have 3 minutes to go. I think I will spare more time to the public so that when they have questions and other things, I'll give up the 3 minutes and leave it at here until we interact. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. I think that was a very comprehensive presentation. I would have loved for you to summarize what you said in the local languages of your choice. I'll give you 2 minutes each, or just do one local language of your choice, 3 minutes. Thank you.
That's a problem. I'm more fluent in other languages than my own mother tongue. So the Fulani tribe, Ongachanat Kamhake, now I don't know whether I go to Wolof or Mandinka, I can do either. Mbadi Mandinko Ngal Kontong, na Dokunyo Dr. Ismail Assis, Minister Mimar Kibarola, wole la bengo mubidi. Ay bengo kere minka mawolo Mansa Kunda doku bundal minister o minister isi najang lokum fula wala dobi je karigo kari sinya klik minister o minister ye doku min karfetema ye na ye nimbanko mol nyaay tilin nyola ye sasi doku minna yafo molye ibe mune ke kanje yafo molye bari fanan molu minu lafta ke nyinin kay la doku la karola pour min man sene la je pour nyinin karo ke ye sene andi yimbe wala dalilo mu wolati ngamin fo nun drong angale kan oto wolong bunda min be karafarinte la wolong attorney general's chambers Ministry of Justice bunda min mo jamala miro mu nyinati dolla do ko ba mu loyal le dina do ko mu kata court kata kiti bumoto bari ngami itandi jangamera la moy lal ya fahamle ko Ministry of Justice la do ko tambita kiti bunto ta da malal nka minke koma min manke kata kiti wala wala siyata nka minke kiti bumoto nga departmental contingent minu tata fo lulu min ya lon ko wolbe ministry kono je la dun jama wol kono wolbu kata court fa department folo wolon civil litigation department wolle marata ka Mansa Kunda la contrat ko lu ning Mansa Kunda lafta yamar lola walla be kuke kan lafta ge yamare civil department ne marata wala bari tolle fana marta na banko la loi ko la banta la bankol kan bari nim moy Mansa Kunda samani wato wadi walla nim Mansa Kunda lafta ka mo samani kiti wala na manke criminal case ol civil department ne marata wala banko kan ani banko e bandala criminal division jamabi je wala nyaton ko mol dal tawle to moy la baake wolon DPPT director of public prosecution wolle ni criminal ol be kelola momo ya lon ko elu wale tinya yemute ni loi sen danyola nim police ol ma min kitindi no kanan tolle ya department of criminal division ne marta prosecution la den nga department jama dol so ñin department flolu mol ka wolle je court wol don ne kata kiti yo bar department jamal bi jël mi yalon koy la kiti tuta mansia bari wol be background o to bi do ko wala misal fe nga department o soto ka fo mi company department business wo business be jim banko kan jang fo register e ka register dami nga be Ministry of Justice le koto wo department o bendel la fana la ministry koto business registration hana la ka folo association ol alka moy le ngan naka fo register justice ngamara be ko moy ñolal that means department wala bije mim marata wala department do be ko to fana mi alon ko wolle marata wolle ka fo le kireto wolon ni alay minu min jiyo doya tubabol la karola loi la karola dol bije janni be fale lafte la nafulo e talanya mi ka safele tubab loi to ka fo will ni fate ma will to koma ila nafulo janya sila fulale be banko kan ka talanya mi natre bitala loi la folo wolon yetano kadi code bat nimminu mantano kadi code ndefana na office kireto bunda bi jel mi yalon ko i kanaje o kireto loi sembo de alale o mari la nafulo be dawoda banko kam banko e bantala asa be kafuno nyoka ngake dula kiling minu nyanta o nafulo ketala ya tala e betema o bunda fana be justice bunda do fana bi je mi mu register general la dim bundade register general ate ninkum registry le babulu registry pour misalo ka mawlon danaka buko le babulu mi yalon ka tel ka ak safero le keje o registry il tata fo saba alla korda kaytolu contrat ko minu ka sign judgment ol fengo fen ning kayti kum malon ilafta loi ya kayto nyin soute soma aka register le o registration o ka ket me ka fo le deed registry wo be register general le koto registry do fanam ba koto wolon marriage registry futuo ngamira be tori sisino la kono kan na fondin ke jamaaje ni lun tubab lun tangol kata futu wala justice o department of fana be register general le koto because futu sitita aka record la aka register le den nga certificate o dila ngan lansino fana dila so bunda fana be register general le koto registry sabanjango mimba koto wala mu intellectual property registry wala mol min yalon ko ala yeso ye ila londo to ye feng ye kukuta bondino pour que la o kukuto nyim pour ka tangandi ekatala ya kumaka ya save pour loi sa protectie for art lembang for few no mi along intellectual property wala hani business all ikamin for trademarks ila business o e souterrain soto mi along ko isita no Ministry of Justice ya register ni ya register modo kotente o souterrain o use no la marchandise o bala ite da madon ne se okay no so o registry sabol le register general ko ngada word okay amamba all right then, thank you.
Abarka bake honorable minister ela kuma ko betiata ngamara san fahamo keta mole akalamuta alla do ku bunda be nyaadile sambe min kala san kana la lun tongol mi alon ko ni wala be silo kan momo minidi sabab mi wodila andoni ko minidi sabalon the language of your choice. You can do English, you can do Swedish, you can do Wolof if you want, but I'll give you 3 minutes, your name, your designation, and just briefly what you do for the purpose of the public. Yeah, from there, yes. There are mics very close. We can start with, yeah, Solicitor General, thank you.
I believe it's on. Good evening, Your Excellency, the Vice President, honorable ministers, members of staff of the Ministry of Justice, members of the press, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Honorable Minister, thank you very much. That was a brilliant presentation. My name is Hussein Tomasi. I'm the Solicitor General and Legal Secretary at the Ministry of Justice. I essentially work under the Minister of Justice, and I assist him as his principal assistant. The ministry is actually headed by the minister, who happens to be the Attorney General. So as Attorney General, he heads the legal work of the ministry, and I assist him in doing that, in executing his constitutional responsibilities. I do so also within the context of the laws of the land, the Interpretation Act and the Law Officers Act. These are laws that mandate me as Solicitor General to exercise powers that may be exercised by the minister as imposed by law. So essentially, I coordinate the various departments within the ministry, the departments that have been highlighted by the minister today. So these are things that I do, coordinate these departments and ensure that they carry out their mandates and activities, and also carry out oversight over the satellite institutions such as NALA, ADRS, and NATI, which the minister highlighted here. One aspect of our work that gives us so much public visibility is that of the criminal prosecutions that we do. And we do this in the context of crime prevention and also ensuring safety of all citizens. And the department is headed, of course, as stated by the Honorable Minister, by the Director of Public Prosecutions, Mr. Mataima Yusuf, who's present with us this evening. And to date, we have over 300 cases that have been prosecuted throughout the length and breadth of this country, across all the high courts, Court of Appeal of the Republic of the Gambia. We carry out prosecutions in Banjul High Court, in the Kanifing High Court, Bundung High Court, Brikama High Court, Mansa Kunda High Court, Janjamburi High Court, as well as the Basse High Court. We are present in all these courts throughout, exercising criminal prosecutions, all in an effort to ensure that we are all safe. And of course, that's one aspect that gives us so much visibility, and I believe that's why the minister emphasized that court is not only what we do. I mean, there's another big aspect to our work, which is what we do at the level of the Department of Civil Litigation and International Law, which is the department that's responsible to scrutinize all government contracts. You may be aware that we have a mandate to look at all contracts that the government is involved in. The government is involved in national contracts, multilateral contracts, cutting across national and international matters. And these are all scrutinized and vetted by the Ministry of Justice. Yes, let me just highlight one aspect of our work, which is also, I'm sure some staff of the legal drafting department present here will not be happy if I don't say it, because I was told that I should be mindful that they are the epicenter of legislation in the Gambia. There's a big aspect to our work, which is preparing all legislation that goes to the National Assembly. This is done at the level of the ministry, and it has been done by the legal drafting department, and the task is quite huge. As we are speaking, we have about 80 pieces of legislation within the drafting department that are there for scrutiny and also ensuring that they are prepared into bills for transmission to the National Assembly. But Honorable Minister, let me also say that our work as a ministry goes beyond the shores of the Gambia. As highlighted by the ministry, we are present at the ECOWAS Court, we are present at the International Court of Justice, and at the African Court of Human Rights. So we also extend our work beyond the shores of the Gambia. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's a lot of work. Also, I'll take this opportunity to acknowledge the presence of senior officials from the Ministry of Justice who are also here with us today, but also senior government officials here today, and also particularly those from the Ministry of Information, Media and Broadcasting Services that are also here today. Ida? You'll speak last, okay.
Assalamualaikum. Man maa ngi tudda Aji Adam Cissé man maay creator of Interstate Estate wax bi na jarul bari ngir suma ministre def na introduction bi te laaka na ko bu baax si soose waaye si gàttal rek ñun ñooy looyee nit ñu dee yi loolu la ñu dee waxal ku xam ne yàlla def na nga jiitu bàyyi sa alal gannaaw ñooy try ba def ba sa njaboot ñu war a doona si yow doona lu ñu war ak ñu waree dañ koy def nag si comme ku gaañu sa diine lu mu doon parce que as you know the constitution allows personal law when it comes to Muslims for marriage inheritance and divorce and as such ku gaañu su nekkee jullit la kon sharia ngay ñëw pour miraas alalam su nekkee ne doomi jullit su nekkee ne catholique la then you apply the English laws so ñun maanaam ku gaañu ñooy diggante banque loo bàyyi gannaaw si banque bi ngir bés boo génnee àddina mënatuloo defal dara sa boppa ñun ñooy taxaw defal la loo war a def nekk sa gémmiñ nekk sa loxo nekk sa tànka demal la foo war a dem defal la loo war a def si gàttal loolu mooy suñu liggéey waaw.
jërëjëf boobu tam leer na right next please.
Good evening, Your Excellency, Chief of Staff, Honorable Ministers here present. My name is Abdullah Koli. I'm the Registrar General. Like as highlighted by the Honorable Attorney General, there are three departments under, there are three units under my department. First is the deeds registration. Since, as you all know, deeds have been registered since colonial days. But in 2019, we developed a deeds registration system that was launched by the ministry, and then since then, we register deeds. When I say deeds, I mean assignment, leases, power of attorneys, mortgages. You all know how important certain documents are, especially power of attorneys. Every day we register a lot of power of attorneys because people need them to go to court, and so that shows how important the department is. And then last year, we were able to generate a lot of money for the government. In regards to under the deeds we registered, but we were able to generate over $6 million. So the second unit is the civil registration, civil marriage registration. You all know how important that also is. We register this, and then as a result also on that basis, we are able to issue bachelors, to confirm bachelors and Spencer certificate, to confirm status of Gambians, especially of residents in the Gambia. And the third one is the industrial property unit. Industrial property unit registers patent, trademark, utility model. This is something that most Gambians are not aware of, but internationally it's a growing thing. And Gambia also is a member state of certain organizations. One mentioned by the minister is the African Regional Intellectual Property Organization. Gambia plays a key role in there. And then currently we serve as vice chair of the Administrative Council as well as Council of Ministers. So it shows a role also at the international level. Beside that also, I want to talk about companies. Companies, as mentioned by the minister, we register companies, register also associations, NGOs, and also sole businesses and partnership. And all those departments, they play a crucial role to the public and also generate a lot of revenue to the government. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Ida Person. I am the Special Advisor to the Honorable Minister of Justice on Transitional Justice. I'm also the head of the Post-TRC Unit, which is a secretariat. So I wear two hats. In my first hat, I support the Honorable Minister to make very difficult policy decisions around the Transitional Justice Program of the Gambia. In another hat, I am a head of a secretariat, so I do a lot of running around. There are 263 recommendations that the government, we have committed to implementing. And out of those 263, there are 59 government institutions from ministries, departments, and agencies that are involved in the implementation process. The Ministry of Justice is just one of them, but there are 58 others: Ministry of Health, Ministry of Tourism, National Center for Arts and Culture, civil society, and you name it. So it's an extremely broad program, and that's why the coordination function that this secretariat is playing is extremely crucial. Transitional justice is a very important, unique, and historic moment in the Gambia. It's one that puts us on the map. Everybody's watching. And so we're extremely happy that in 2024, the Honorable Minister in his leadership, but also by galvanizing all of government, we've been able to, for example, get ECOWAS to agree on the establishment of a special tribunal competent to try international crimes that may have happened in the Gambia. This is a first. It's absolutely incredible, and so I'm sure there will be maybe questions later on around that. But there have been many other achievements that we should really all be proud of, and by all of us, I really mean all of us, all of society, from the media, civil society, etc., such as the establishment of the Victims' Reparations Commission. And on that, we have to really work hard this year to make sure that it's operationalized, to put at the fore victims' reparation, their medical needs, and so on. So the Transitional Justice Program, as the Honorable Minister had said, as if your core mandate was not sufficient, you know? No, it certainly was not. Okay. We just had to add that onto your plate.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, you and your team. As the chief journalist of the country, I'll take the opportunity to ask the first question. Then I'll open the floor for the questions. The transition from autocracy to democracy was a challenge. But the Gambia was very successful. I think it's a success story. Other countries are coming to learn a model of transition. Because normally when transitions take place, either from autocracy to democracy or from civil war to political stability, some they revert back, or it takes a long time. But we are very successful. And many reforms took place, as in any transition. Legal reforms, which comes under your domain, social reforms, economic reform, political reforms. But today we are mostly interested in legal reforms. And you mentioned 263 recommendations. And I've seen people making bold statements that the government has no political will to implement these recommendations. What is your response to these statements, Honorable Minister of Justice and Attorney General? Thank you.
The political will, I'll only quote my boss, the president. He said his political will in ensuring that the transitional justice is implemented and it reaches its logical conclusion is 100% plus. And I could attest to that commitment as the minister in charge of implementing overseeing the transitional justice process. I haven't seen any instance where he individually even raised concerns to me as to what I am doing in the area of transitional justice. He is not happy. He completely left it to us to implement it as it is. He is not interfering with what we are doing, and he is giving us all the support. One of the evidence of that support is the current, just the recently approved establishment of the special court. The president was in the forefront of the campaign. And when we talk about political will, usually we look at the figure, the head of state, because that's where the political will is. And he was in forefront. He was calling his colleague heads of state. He was meeting with them and ensuring that he galvanized all the necessary support to ensure that that issue goes through. And with the victims, they can attest themselves if they're here. We have arranged a meeting between the victims and the president, and they spoke to each other directly. And I believe when they came out, they were convinced that the president is in fact more in favor of victims than many people. He told them he doesn't want to politicize their issue. But for him, priority is the victims' issues. And as a result, we have succeeded in having the 7 listed names of the commissioners approved by the National Assembly. Hopefully, the Office of the President will receive the request for formal appointment in the next couple of weeks. And we hope to have the Victims Commission up and running as quickly as possible. And as evidence of his political will, the first resources that will be put into the Victims Fund will be the recoveries that we are making from the United States, which he agreed as a government. Despite all the financial difficulties this government is facing, he allowed that money to be ring-fenced, and it will only arrive and go straight to the Victims Fund. And I can go on and on and on, citing several examples. And the support we are receiving from our colleagues in cabinet, in all the departments, Ms. Pazin have just mentioned to you, that this implementation involves, in addition to the Ministry of Justice, 58 other government departments and civil society organizations. We got a steering committee, and whenever you call meetings, they all come up. And in the government, most of them, they come at permanent secretary level or at director levels to attend the meetings. It shows the commitment of government. But government issues are not as fast as you would want it to be. That's normal in every government, but that doesn't question our political commitment to seeing this process through.
Thank you very much. Now, whoever the mic, we'll take 2 questions from this side and 2 from this side, and we'll give the chance to the minister to answer. We'll come back to the public. So your name, you state your name and then your question. And make your questions as short as possible, please. I'll go to the other side after this.
Okay. Thank you very much. Yusuf Taylor, journalist, civil society advocate. First of all, Happy New Year to you, and of course to you as well. Also, thank you for this fantastic initiative. We hope it continues, and maybe even goes into outside the whole Greater Banjul area. So my question, Honorable Minister, this goes directly to you, sir. You were the youth consultant for the draft constitution, if you can remember.
Was it?
You were the consultant for the youths for the draft constitution, which was submitted, and some of it made its way into the 2020.
Okay, go ahead with your question.
So my question, how do you still maintain to ensure that those recommendations that you had championed are finding their way inside this draft constitution? And then finally, will you defend the draft constitution in Parliament because you failed to do so for the 2020?
Thank you. Next, please. We'll come back. We'll take 2 and come and we'll, okay, let's take 2. 1 here, and then.
Yes, good evening. Yes, my question is very short. I am Ibrahim Oture, student from University of the Gambia, the current sports minister. Yes, I want to ask how soon will these recommendations be implemented? How soon? Because we have been saying it's going to be implemented. How soon it is going to be?
Thank you. Hello, Minister.
I will leave the second one to Ms. Pazin. Let me not even attempt to answer it before I preempt her. I will leave that one to her, to be fair to her, so that she deals with that is directly under her unit. I could answer it. Taylor, what I remember, my recollection, I was in private practice, of course, not in government. the Youth Consortium invited me, to help them make a better understanding of the clauses of the then draft constitution. We spent a day together to explain the various provisions. In order to assist them, based on their understanding, they can develop their position paper for it. So I wasn't a consultant per se, doing a work for them. I was invited in a forum organized by the youth, and my purpose was to come and take them through the draft as it were, so that once their understanding is enhanced, then they will be able to now take informed decisions about various clauses that they would want to do. And that was my job. After that, I left. What the youths did and what recommendations they did, I wasn't part of it, and I did not help them to formulate it. So it's not something that I am even also obligated to defend. But of course, every good clause in this constitution, depending on our various different perspectives, I will be inclined to defend any progressive provision, and youth matters are a priority to this government. So if your question is that, yes, we stand by all progressive provisions in the constitution, and we have done our part of it, and we look forward to the second level at the National Assembly. Thank you. The second one was what? You see, there's a misconception about the whole of this. So I think there's an opportunity I clear the misconception. The executive have a role to play, and we have played our role. And once you submit the bill after the first reading in National Assembly, it's no longer an executive process, it's a legislative process. We are there to listen to the issues they raise, and then we respond if they're in a form of a question, or if we need to offer further explanations, we do. And this is it. Whether, irrespective of how strong your arguments are, legislature is an independent entity. Legislatures also, the members of the parliament, they decide how they vote. So if you say defend, of course, yes, every bill that I take to parliament, I'm responsible to defend it to the extent possible in order to convince them to support the bill. That's the responsibility of any minister that sponsors a bill. That I will do.
Thank you.
Thank you. There are 263 recommendations that have been accepted, and an implementation plan was developed in order to guide this process, because it's a very big program. I like to tell people that on average, a UN project in the Gambia that I have seen, and I've spent 12 years in the UN, a UN project would have about 12 outputs in the Gambia. It would be implemented over 3 years, and it would typically have a budget of about $3 to $5 million. What we're doing here is a 263 output project. An estimated budget of $150 million is required. And our implementation plan is very ambitious. It says it will be done by December 2027, 5 years. It's very ambitious. There's something that must happen. When you're implementing, you can't implement and also monitor yourself. And that's why a very important recommendation that was accepted by the government is that the National Human Rights Commission, as an independent entity from the government, monitors this whole process. And so we depend on the National Human Rights Commission to let us know what has been implemented, how far we have gone, and so on. Now, we are discussing with the National Human Rights Commission, because the monitoring framework that they've put in place to measure, the indicators that they've put in place to measure, we must discuss that and align it. But as of last year, May 2024, we have been informed that 16 out of the 263 recommendations have been fully implemented. 192 of the 263 recommendations are ongoing. And that's very important. 192 of 263 are ongoing. And it's only 55 recommendations that have not commenced yet. Now, I know everybody wants this to start and end, but at the end of the day, we're talking about building a nation. It's not a checkbox exercise. When we talk about reforms, when we talk about the witch hunts, for example, going into communities, talking about these issues, changing mindsets, really, I mean, this is going to continue for quite some time. So we'll do our best to really implement as quickly as we can by 2027. But in reality, this is also a long-term process. And I think ultimately, if the aim is to ensure never again, we should allow the process to also take its course.
Thank you very much. I think that should be very clear. I mean, a recommendation put forth to rectify a situation that has been building for over 20 years. You don't expect us to, that to be implemented in 3-4 years. Because most of the recommendations are to rectify an anomaly or a failure in a system that has been ongoing for over 20, some for over since independence. Now we can't really expect us to really implement that in 2-3 years. It's an ongoing progress, and I'm happy that you said over 990 have started. And that's a good news, and that's a good start. We'll take 2 more questions, one from this end. We'll give the lady the chance. Then we'll go to that side.
Ladies first.
Good evening. Thank you so much. My question is to Ms. Person. The timescale for the activities of the implementation plan has not been completed. If I can remember, it said Jaya Jame would be prosecuted in 2025. That has not been achieved. So my question is, will there be a revised implementation plan going forward? What is the time frame for the remaining activities?
Yes, one more from this side.
Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Ibrahim Ajada. And my question is going to Ida again regarding the TJ. Okay, the recommendations. It's baffling to see, drawing inference from where transitional justice's recommendations were made. Let's narrow it down to Africa. For instance, the pogrom in Nigeria and also that of the ANC in South Africa. We've seen TJs that lasted for scores of years. But it's strange to see the Gambia, we only have a 5-year implementation plan. Now, in between, there would be elections. What's the assurance that if governments change, I do not wish it, but if God wills it, what's the assurance that the implementations would continue?
Thank you. Ida?
Thank you. That's yes, I will answer the first question, and the head of the process will maybe speak to you of the second as well. Of course, the implementation plan is a plan, and so it can be adjusted. I mentioned that in my second role, I'm the head of a secretariat, and we report to the steering committee on the implementation of the TRC recommendations. It is a committee that is chaired by the Solicitor General and comprises all the permanent secretaries, as well as the Gambia Bar Association, Tango, and the Alliance of Victim-led Organizations. Without a doubt, it is within their purview. If they feel we need another 3 years, another 2 years, if they feel that the budget was overestimated, we need to come down, they could do all of that. But I think the purpose of your question is you want us to do everything now, and the fact that it maybe hasn't been done by a certain year is questioning of whether are we doing it at all. Now, the special accountability mechanism is what was mentioned in the government white paper as what we would implement. The special accountability mechanism is a 3-compartment or component mechanism to deal with justice and accountability. It says that first and foremost, we must create an independent special prosecutor's office, because the TRC was a truth commission, and people went there and said whatever they wanted to say, as they should, as a truth commission. It's downloadable on YouTube. We have confessions there, but it was a truth commission. It wasn't a criminal accountability process. So all those files, in the eyes of lawyers, is just information. It's not evidence. So a special prosecutor's office must be created with all the capacity needed, all those sensitivities in place, in check, to actually investigate and to actually build cases. Now, once that's done, we do have, of course, the High Court and the Chief Justice, his Lordship, has established a special criminal division of our High Court to hear the cases. Those can move forward immediately, swiftly. But what happens if it's an international crime? If it's an issue of enforced disappearance or torture, or as I had mentioned, the witch hunt campaigns, right? We needed a forum to be able to bring international cases. And that's why what happened on 20th or 15th rather of December in Abuja is so historic, because now we have a complete framework where justice and accountability happens. I think that's what we should focus on, the effort, the result, and less of the timeline. But I take note, of course, particularly for victims whose lives are short. Our lives are short. We want to see this within our lifespan, unlike a reform process, which we know can continue beyond. So we take note that we need to move fast, but I think we also need to do this properly, the end of the day. On the question on elections, I think I will recuse myself.
All that I can tell you is my honest conviction is the work that we are doing in the transitional justice arena will stand the test of time. So I have no doubts that any government will happily pick up from where the predecessor government stopped and continue. That's my strong conviction. But governments decide what they want to do when they're in power. So there's no guarantee for that. Yeah.
Thank you. We'll take one question from this end, and then I think you've been raising your hands.
Thank you so much.
Now, you can ask the question in the language of your choice. It doesn't have to be English.
Right.
The language you're most comfortable with.
My name is Ghazali Kambe. I want to thank the Ministry of Information for this particular opportunity, and I also want to thank the Ministry of Justice for having done what they've done tonight. My question, just like the first question I would ask, would also be directed to issues surrounding the Constitution or the draft Constitution 2024. Initially, we've seen the then draft 2020, which has not been successful in the Parliament. But when it has been thrown out, that Constitution, as many would say, was highly consultative. You could see that all the citizens of the country have participated or had participated in its formulation. All of a sudden, when it was not successful, we saw that there is a 2024 draft constitution which had in it some portions of the then 2020 draft constitution, but also had removed from it some phrases and some clauses. One, we would want to understand.
What is the question?
Yes, that's what I'm coming to. We want to understand how the 2024 draft constitution comes into existence, because most of us as citizens, we were not aware of its formulation. We were not questioned. It was not consultative as per our, what we understand. And also, the issues about integrity and leadership, for example, those clauses were removed. And for example, when leaders are coming into power, they
can you ask the question so that you, please.
Yeah, it's kind of,
but if you can ask the question, because you've been taking so much time.
Okay, so for example, leadership and integrity has been removed from the 2024 draft, and also when leaders are coming into power to kind of elaborate what they have, but when they are leaving, they don't explain. I don't know if that was the problem in the Parliament, that is why you remove some of those things, or why the things that are removed have been removed, and who were the ones that formulated that particular draft constitution. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next on this side, please.
Thank you very much. This is Mohd Lamin, Chair of the Gambia Radio and Television Services. I have this question for Ms. Person. Is on reparations. After the TRC, recommendations were made, and particularly on reparations, but some of these victims have lived, up to a certain time, due to their medical conditions. Some of them have passed away. They were not able to see justice. They were not able to see reparations, and there are still some of them who are living and in very critical conditions. What mechanism has the ministry put in place to ensure that at least some of these low-hanging fruits are taken care of? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Your question is so long, I don't know which specific parts of everything that you have said requires answers. But I'll give you the answer based on what I take, or what my understanding is what you are looking for. First of all, how did the 2024 draft came about? And who worked on it? Now, when the 2020 draft was rejected, I believe it was in September 2020 in Parliament, there was a debate that led to the vote. So the issues raised by members during the debate were collated. So that was the first point. When the vote was taken and the constitution was rejected, we immediately commenced a political dialogue. Because at that time, our sincere belief was, if we can get a consensus among politicians, then we can get the constitution to go through. Now, these were a series of rounds of consultation, and in fact, some element of civil society participated in those consultations, not widely, because we were trying to avoid reopening a CRC type of consultation, which was done nationally and internationally. We don't want to repeat the same process again. In fact, we do not have resources to do a similar consultation again, because all that we were going to do is to look at the areas that we disagreed on and try to agree to disagree on what do we do with those areas of disagreement. So we commenced a political dialogue, which culminated into political leaders meeting at some point in a venue, and all the issues among them, the political parties, without any direct executive interference, just political leaders. They have agreed certain things to be changed. And those things were captured by the rapporteurs in those meetings. And those reports were submitted to me as an Attorney General. I did not dictate those reports. These were facilitated by international reputable organizations, and the political leaders who participated in those various consultations are still alive. They're here. So whatever they discussed to agree, because the Constitution was projected in a screen like we are here, and they were going through the Constitution clause by clause as political leaders to agree to disagree on various clauses of the Constitution without any interference from us. And a report emanated from that. Now, these are some of the reports that were submitted to Cabinet with the 2020 draft. And these were the basis for Cabinet to look at those reports, that's the concerns raised by political parties and other parties that were consulted, and Cabinet's own position as a government. Then this is what led to the 2024 draft. And that is what we presented to Parliament.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ida?
Thank you. On your question regarding reparations and the urgency, without a doubt, it's known. One of the most important steps that the unit, the Post-TRC Unit, took in January when I stepped in was to establish an open door policy with the Alliance of Victim-Led Organizations. So we are in constant communication and work very closely together. Not to mention that the Alliance, of course, sits at the steering committee level and is a part of so many different activities. So we're aware really of the condition of victims. And many a forum, I also remind victims that we have family members as well that are directly affected, you know. There really is in this separation as much as people think. Now, having said that, of course, their needs need to be met. One of the lessons learned from the TRRC is that when it closed in November 2021, the medical board that was working with the TRRC established by the Ministry of Health also closed its operations. And so between November 2021 until December 2023, when it was revived again by the Ministry of Justice, again with the Ministry of Health, there were no medical or prioritized medical services being given to victims as a special marginalized group. But that has been ongoing since January of this year. About 100, January last year, apologies, we are in 2025. There's about 100 victims that have been seen, and there's also been support to procure the medicines that they need and so on. It's unfortunate that some of them, because they have gone so long with their medical conditions, whether physical or psychological, that the services that they require are quite advanced, and we don't have that available in country. So there are discussions about putting together a more comprehensive medical program that may require victims going overseas, or better yet, ensuring that those equipments and those specialities come into the country because that's the only way that we can grow as well or build our healthcare infrastructure. So just to answer that question, to say that certainly it's known, it's acknowledged, it's something that we want to work very quickly on, and that's why prioritizing all these actions on ensuring that the Reparations Commission is fully functional, that the fund is fully operational so that they can be proper and full reparations is definitely a priority. And in the interim, we have the medical board, and thanks to the Ministry of Health, that's prioritizing the urgent medical attentions to the best of its abilities.
Thank you very much. This round we'll take 3 questions. We'll take one from outside, which is, what are the next steps if this draft is rejected? What will be the next steps? That is, will there be a revision process? They want to know what the next steps will be in case this draft is rejected again. We'll take one question from this end and then one from this end.
Okay, jërëjëf maa ngi tudd Amath Kebe, Paradise. Suma laaj bu njëkk bi mooy gis neen ñi nga xam ne ñoo nekk kilifa yi mooy ECOWAS mu jëneen nangu ne Gambia dina am hybrid code wala special tribunal code boo xam ne dina ko amal li ma doon laaj mooy kañ leen séntu ne leen koy taxawal ak fan ndax gis neen ki nga xam ne moo nekk Isan Abare Chat ñu ngi ko atte fi nga xam ne moo nekk Sénégal ndax Gambia day pare pour génne ko wala fii la ñëw atte ñi nga xam ne dañ leen tuumaal ci jamono Yaaya Jammeh beneen bit ñi nga xam ne dañ leen jote téyeegum ndax gis neen ku ci mel ni Bora defe naa juróom-ñeenti fan ci weeru August ci lañ ko téye woon ba léegi dégguñ dara ci moom ñi jote téyeegum lan leen séntu ci ñoom.
Jërëjëf. One from that end.
Good evening. My name is Nyanin Kamanjang. All protocols respectfully and duly observed. The last bosom of hope for any common man is the judicial system, that it should be incorruptible, untainted, and unblemished as well. To take a reference from the post-genocide in Rwanda and the justice system that they were able to use to restore the hopes, that were missing in their social cohesion. My question is, looking at what has happened over the 22 years period under Jammeh's rule, what form of justice system will be used? Is it primarily the restorative justice system or redistributive justice system to ensure that the post-Jammeh era cemented back our relationship that we've yearned for as Gambians? Thank you.
Thank you.
The plan after, if this constitution is rejected, the first consolation is, honestly speaking, the Gambia is not in a constitutional crisis. We have a constitution that is in place. We badly needed a new constitution because we want to draw a line between the past and the new dispensation that we all yearn for and we are in now. It's very critical. And for several other reasons, we need a new constitution. It's a little bit traumatic even for the victims as well. And so many Gambians definitely think the 1997 constitution is overtaken by the realities of our society at the moment. So no way of downplaying the importance of using a new constitution to usher us into a third republic. But we also need to allay the fears of the public to confirm that it is not a constitutional crisis situation. We are still going to continue the constitutional building process, all right, and work towards achieving our desire of having a new constitution. So that's the answer to what next in the event if it is rejected. The question from this end was, the ECOWAS code, yo ya waxon ci wolof. Waaw, nga ne fan la kañ la. Fan la Gambia la. Ndax fii lañoo aatee nit ñi waaw fii lañ leen a aatee loolu lañ bëgga waaye nag defar nañ luwaa bi anam boo xam ne bu fekkee ne gis nañ loo xam ne dinañu ragalloo pour yeneen nit ñu aate leen fii code bi def nañ ko si luwaa bi ba pare code bi am na sañ-sañ mu toxal fu moo toog mun naa dem toogi Dakar Accra Abuja anywhere within ECOWAS code bi mun naa toxal toogoom bi mu dem toogee foofu su fekkee ne jar na ko loolu nag dafa des si situation bi su waxtu bu jotee waaye code bi Banjul la fii la ñoo aatee nit ñi kañ la loolu moom mbir ñu bari ñooy détermine loolu because fu mu nekk nii ñu ngi recruit ñu ngi appoint prosecutor bi kii li mu waxoon si angale prosecutor bi téere yiñ jëlee si TRRC bi ñoom commission la boo xam ne nekkut court of law ñoom nit ñi dañoo ñëw ñu wax lu ñu wax ñu binda su fekkee ne indi nañ seede ñu denca léegi dañoo appoint prosecutor boo xam ne moom liggéeyam mooy mu gëstu kayit yooyu yëpp léegi mu pareel case file yi pour mu decide fan la moo file so kañ la moom mun naa doon anytime after bu ñu appointé di prosecutor bi loolu nag ñu ngi si ko am ay ndaw ñi nga xam ne ñoom ñoo war a tànn prosecutor bi ndaw ñooñu tànn nañ leen ba pare ñooñu commencé nañ di mit léegi te mais bi ñu advertise nit ñi commencé apply ñu appoint kuy nekk prosecutor bi buñ ko appointé ba pare nag moom dañ koo jébal kayit yi ak evidence yi yëpp yu TRRC jëloon dañ ko koo jox depuis nuñ leen recevé woon TRRC ba léegi joxe naa instruction benn carton sax ubbi wuñ ko because dañ bañ ñu tuumal nguur bi moo tampa with the evidence so ñun nuñ ko recevé noonu lañ leen tegee laaluñ leen so buñ appointé prosecutor bi rek dañoo jël evidence yooyu yëpp jox ko prosecutor bi te government pare na pour jox prosecutor bu doole yim soxla yëpp léegi moom mooy decide nit ñi nga xam ne ñooñu lañ tuumal ne dañ leen war a aate prosecutor bi mooy am full powers mu decide kan la moo aate kan la moo jël si ñoom mu def leen seede kan la moo baalal loolu yëpp si moom laa des loolu desul si nguur bi moom mooy toppatoo loolu waaye kañ la nag mënuma tontu loolu waaye process baa ngi yoon right Bora waaw yàlla laal nga Bora waaw Bora ñëw na dugg na si réew mi Bora at some point ñun yëpp xam nañ ne moom mooy njiiti jongula si ñi nga xam ne def nañ tafaar yu bari si réew mi Bora nag depuis bu mu duggee si réew mi nguur bi teg na ko loxo ñu ngi ko jàppa fu mu nekk nii ñu ngi enquête affaire am mu ngi déggoo ak ay security officer yi ak investigators yi ñu ngi si ko am ñu ngi investigate bu tooloo foo xam ne dinañ war a yëgal askan bi dinañ yëgal askan bi waaye dëgg la ba léegi Bora mu ngi suñ loxo te gëstu yaa ngi continuer. That was what? Oh yes, mixed. We are doing both restorative and retributive justice, both of them, right? Restorative, that's why we're having the Victims Commission. We are doing reparation, and reparation is a broad term. It can even include an apology, memorialization, restitution, sometimes when people have lost properties and things like that. So we are doing restorative justice, but definitely, they say there cannot also be any peace without justice. So justice and accountability component too will be implemented, which in all accounts is retributive. So it's both. We are applying both, and we're trying to balance it as much as possible. Thank you.
All right, we'll take two more questions, one from this end and one from that end. Anyone here? We are in the middle, you are not on this end. Okay. We'll come back to yes.
My question goes to the Honorable Minister. He stated, and I think before here, he stated in another platform that in the consultation for the 2024 draft, the heads of the political parties were invited. We've heard some of the political party members or the leaders. One of them is reportedly Mansa Kunda, the GDC leader, who said he wasn't invited and wasn't aware of the consultation. So I want to know who are the heads of the political parties that were invited for the consultation. Thank you.
Thank you. We get one from here, Sana. I think Sana was, yes, Sana. Yes. Oh, Pabab, all right, okay.
Okay. Thank you. Yep. All right. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister and your team. So Pabab from the diaspora. We have a lot of opinions, but I'll try to keep it very short. By the way, you are a hell of a good minister, and you have a very competent staff. With regards to the draft constitution, I know there is a lot of noise that is going around, especially around the accountability and integrity stuff that was taken out of the 2024 draft constitution. But I would like to remind every citizen that, we do have a civil service ethics, code of conduct and ethics, right? So that should be able to take care of, accountability and integrity. And also be reminded that we have two consequential laws that were passed. It's the Access to Information Act, as well as the Anti-Corruption Act. So don't only think about the Constitution, but we have existing laws that should be able to, help us have more governance, within government. But that is my opinion about the draft constitution, or the constitution that is at the National Assembly now. Mm-hmm. And the people we should be going after right now is members of parliament, or our National Assembly members. If this bill is not passed, I would want to say shame on them, because they have every opportunity to amend it and make it better. All right, that's where I will stop with regards to the draft constitution. My question is about the slow justice process in this country. I have a friend who has a case at the Bundung court. I don't want to name the judge, but we know probably who the judge is. Okay. Why are cases so slow, especially in that court? Can you please help us to understand that, and what mechanism do you have in place to make sure that justice is expeditious in that court?
Thank you.
This is the first or the second question? There was a first question.
No, the first was a comment.
This is the first, but it's a very important question, especially on the delay of court cases. And I would want to give you a substantive answer to this. It's not our wish, and we are trying to do as much as we possibly can to change this situation as quickly as possible, both at the level of government in terms of policy and at the level of the judiciary. Efforts are in place to change the situation. We know it is very frustrating for litigants to go to court and keep going to court and keep going to court for a very long time without receiving any verdict. This is even more concerning to us when it involves commercial cases, because it discourages investment and investors in the country. But also, people are entitled to know, they're entitled to have finality in their litigation. But your question is, what causes it? The cause of delay in litigation in this country has a lot of factors, not one party, because there are different stakeholders in any given single lawsuit you look at. If you take a criminal case as an example, the criminal case usually are investigated by the police. If it is something that has to be handled by the state law office, then they will send the file to my office. Our lawyers will look at them, and if we are convinced that the investigation have revealed sufficient evidence to charge, we will charge, and we go to court. But the prosecutors from the state law office would need police officers as witnesses, but would also need other witnesses who went to give statements at the police station. So already we have identified 3 stakeholders: the prosecutor, the police investigator, the witnesses. Once you file in court, the court also is a stakeholder. Like you talk about a particular judge, which you say you don't want to mention. The court is a stakeholder. Now, if that particular accused person takes a defense counsel, then private lawyers are also a stakeholder in the same single case. Now, assuming we go to court today, we had one witness or partial evidence of one witness. We want to adjourn. In a typical case, the state law officer who is prosecuting the case would want a date that is convenient to his diary, because he might have many other cases that he is attending to as a lawyer. So now you see lawyers opening their diaries when the case is being adjourned in case. So you want to accommodate the state law officer. You want to accommodate the private lawyer who also have so many cases. And the court itself has a diary. The court itself has its court docket. It has a lot of cases for that judge. That judge has his own cases. So if you are to adjourn now, you have to look at the diary of the prosecutor, the diary of the private practitioner, the diary of the court. Now, for them to get a date, sometimes you realize then they adjourn, if you are lucky, 2 weeks. The law said criminal cases should not be adjourned beyond 2 weeks. But sometimes it's violated. It's adjourned to 1 month or 3 weeks, because it just cannot come within the next 2 weeks. These are to show you that multiple stakeholders in a single case can also cause a delay. The delay might be from my people, the prosecutors. The delay might be from a private practitioner's point of view. The delay might be from the witness's point of view, because sometimes even the victims of crime, I'm only using criminal case here as an example. Civil cases can sometimes even be much longer, especially land matters. Sometimes the victims of crime, they go up to some point, they lose interest in the matter. You call them to come and give evidence, they don't want to come. They've given up. But another major factor that causes cases to delay in the Gambia is the judiciary is working under very difficult situations. Court proceedings in court in the Gambia are still recorded by longhand. They use their pen and paper to write proceedings. So imagine if you go to court, you put a witness in the box, and everything that witness said, the judge have to write it with his or her hand, or the magistrate have to write it with his or her hand. How many witnesses can you hire in a day between 8 and 4? You are human. So we are working, so those are, and I can go on, there are so many factors that contribute to cases being delayed. In civil matters, that's another thing, but still the same factors will be involved. In civil matters, you may have two lawyers who are all private lawyers opposing each other. You still have the court there. You still have witnesses. So still the same stakeholders can contribute to the delay, but also the infrastructure situation of the judiciary itself can contribute to the delay. So what do we do about it? We are working on digitalizing the judicial proceedings, so that when witnesses come to court, when they enter a box, they speak to a microphone like we are doing now. This is all recorded. The judge doesn't have to write with longhand. Once this recording is completed, in the next 30 minutes, those audio recordings are transcribed into text and it is placed on the judge's table. And all the parties will be served with a copy of the transcripted testimony of witnesses, what happened in court. This will, we believe this will improve a lot the speed of proceedings. So one court can hear so many cases in the day because nobody is going to be bothered in recording. Even the counsel that are in court would not bother today. Maybe they just take their notes, points, but everything that is said will be captured digitally, transcribed into text, and everybody is served a copy. We believe that will go a long way in making our proceedings much more efficient. And we are already piloting these things in some courts. If the pilots turns out to be successful, this will be it will be implemented in full, but of course it demands resources, and we know. But we are doing our best, we are committed to this, so that in the end, the consumers of justice, you, the Gambian people, will get speedy justice. Thank you.
Thank you. That was the last question, huh? Which one was the first one? Yes.
Oh, there was the political party thing?
Yeah, he said Mama Kande said he wasn't consulted.
Would you want to answer that?
Huh?
Would you want to answer that?
No, no, you answer that.
Because you were in the same position with him at the time, and you were with him in the same hall. So that's my answer.
Yes.
I want to leave it at that. The answer is, good thing is the curator of interstate estate at the time, who is sitting on my left, was the coordinator of organizing those meetings. And I'll hand the mic to her.
Thank you. We did several consultations, and I believe it's together with under the assistance of International IDEA. And we flew all the political party leaders all the way to Abuja, Nigeria. And President Goodluck Jonathan was even the mediator at that session. And I can tell you fully well that His Excellency Mama Kande was indeed part of the people who were in Abuja together. I can tell you that. And he was consulted.
And I was also there, and he was there. And my experience was that I was tested for COVID. And then I demanded a second test, and it came out negative. So we can clearly say all political parties were involved in the consultation process. Thank you.
Well, a caveat, except for PDYS.
Yes, except for the
they did not participate in those meetings, yes.
Yes. Next on this side is Sana. Sana has been...
I am Binta Esba from Musa Mola Online TV. Honorable Minister of Justice, this question is for you. What is your ministry doing to help our Gambian brothers who are in the Tunisian prisons or jail?
Who are in?
In the Tunisians.
Tunisian prisons?
Yes, OJ.
Okay, thank you.
The Bagway.
That's news to me, but I believe the appropriate competent authority will be Foreign Affairs. We can backstop them legally, but I believe I will consult my counterpart in the Foreign Ministry to find out about this situation and we see what we do about it.
So we have probably 8 minutes, so we'll be rounding up very soon. Yes, Sana?
Thank you very much. Finally, I've got the mic. Talking about prisons, my question is basically on prisons reforms, which is also filling in the broader aspect of security sector reform. I know your ministry is not the security institution, but the legislative aspect of it is on your desk. So I'm asking this question relating to the prisons. We've seen there has emerged some reports of some human rights violations taking place at the prisons. Of course, not to the scale compared to before, but a right violation is a right violation, and this is supposed to be a new Gambia. Now, for the past 4 weeks or so, I have been working on something related to prisons. I went to the prisons, interviewed the DG, and of course, other stakeholders, including the NSA. Now, we realized that there is an ongoing reform process. The prison bill has been reviewed. I think the act was in 1953, last reviewed in 1957. This was the time of my grandfather, and I'm still here. Now, my question is, when we knock the doors, we realize that it is reviewed from validated and it's at the Ministry of Justice. And then we realize, okay, at the Ministry of Justice, there are also the NSA bill, or is it the ONS bill? There's the SIS bill, there's the police bill, there's the immigration bill. So almost all these bills under the security sector reform are either pending there, or I think one of them is actually at the reading stage of the National Assembly. It's 2017 and this is 2025. Please, Honorable Minister, tell us what is the holdup? Why is the security sector reform bills still on your desk or at your level? Thank you very much.
Thank you. I received an updated list of all the bills on the drafting department. I know for a certain quite a number of these bills that you've mentioned have been returned to the sectors, or some of them have not been sent yet to us. But people take convenience in saying it's at justice. We are used to that. They say it's at justice and it's at justice. But I know, even in preparing to come to this meeting, the legislative drafting department have sent me a table. I wouldn't have the time to open that here in order to answer you. I have an updated table of all the bills that are currently pending in our ministry. I can tell you for certain, I believe for immigrations, the police we have not received yet. I think we have not received police yet. Immigrations and prisons are back to the sectors, as far as I can recollect properly. I don't think we have received SIS yet, their bill. We know they are in the works. Most of these bills are in the work, yes. Some have come to us until they are back to the sectors and they are getting ready to be tabled in cabinet. Some are already in the National Assembly. The National Security Office bill is already laid before the National Assembly, which I believe you are aware of. So it's progressive, but since your major concern is about the prison, I think the good news for you is Gambia government have taken a definitive position that Mile 2 is no longer conducive to incarcerate people. As a result, we are working very hard, and hopefully very soon works will start to build a completely new, brand new prison to replace Mile 2. Thank you. Your statement is very general. Human rights violations in prison, you without specifics, I don't know how do I respond to that, but what I can tell you is we, as recently as this week, there are meetings that I attended where prison issues have been discussed at a very high level. And plans are underway. We will be visiting prisons ourselves. And we'll be looking at the conditions of the prisons, even as if, with the intention of improving the conditions until we are ready with the new prisons.
Thank you. Yes. I'll come to you just very soon. Yes. Where's the mic? We'll give you the mic.
Assalamu alaikum. Civilian Lamin Demba. Program o diata bake ay bari ko Mansa Kunda. Oto Mansa Kunda la bulo abe kumayata jela. Ngani ninkaro mi soto wala nyinti ko. Nka Mansa Kunda la bundal jele ikanyoma mi yalon ko Mansa Kunda ya topotole aseneata do fana kana akaku keje min kamol dundi nyola. Wala mundi wala nyinde mbengalo nako Gambia keno mu fenkuma baleti je mi yalon ko Gambia din jama ka sulala baren kaje ko Mansa Kunda ka dula list Mansa fanga toyala bare isaje for example Mansa dula min list local government na bunda sata aka occupancy bondale ka coordinate so wo kan jakal bage lafta wo sifalu iso bondi
okay
mune ko sabu
wolo
nyinin karo ko Mansa Kunda la dula list rimo Mansa Kunda la dula do fana kata ika occupancy bondala dula list rim kono
okay
so wo mu jakalolde
ya baraka
thank you.
Yes.
Hello, my name is Adiumi Sonko. Of course, I'm in the University of the Gambia, fourth-year law student. So my question specifically goes to the Attorney General, Honorable Minister. How does your office balance the enforcement of national security with fundamental human rights, particularly in cases, sensitive cases that involve state interest?
Thank you. Yes, back to...
Typical law student question. It's so vague, I don't even know how to go around it. We're committed to respecting fundamental human rights across the country in all our dealings with the people. But you know, as a law student, you would know that rights are not absolute. They are sometimes subject to certain restrictions depending on the circumstances. We are all entitled to freedom of movement, but if you are suspected of having committed a crime, you can be arrested. And the period of your arrest, your movement have been restricted. And I can give you so many, many other examples where situations do arise where we temporarily lose the ability to exercise our full rights because of certain circumstances we find ourselves in. We were just talking about prisoners. They are incarcerated. Some of their rights are not realized. They don't vote. They don't have a freedom of going where you and I can go this evening. Maybe you are going to Yusundur, and they cannot go because their freedoms have been curtailed because of the circumstances they find themselves. But as Attorney General, I can attest to you that this government is committed to respecting fundamental human rights in all our dealings with the public and whether Gambians or non-Gambians who are resident in the country, as guaranteed by the Constitution. So the balancing act that you would want me to comment on, that's what I'm not very clear with. If it is balancing it with security, law enforcement, of course the laws have adequately provided for those reasons. The police have got powers when to arrest, and when they arrest, how long they can detain, and what they can do with you and cannot do with you, and so on and so forth. So we try to make sure we respect them in most of our dealings. Thank you.
And the question from Lance.
Yes. Ngami fahamu nyini karlala nyini karot wolo nyindi ko Mansa Kunda bunda do ka kuoke Mansa Kunda kilingola bunda do ka wobanoto. Basically, kumola sutiato. Ngami fahamu, if I get it right. Wo is very unfortunate. Amanyan nakela. And niwu asiata kenol la karola baki. But if fenno mi alonga in sulale as a government, Minister Bunda me marata la wolti jang. But ultimately la tata na da be mu luwa quality adun tele marata luwa la. So mu kulet mi alonga in concern le hani ñun loku mo min kono Mansa Kunda la ben dula do ñun ko sifal kachata ji. So but wol fana bu kole ngamin fo kiti bu la karola. Na banku keno maranya banko kanjanga nin luwal minu marta banko keno la mbiji barike kan wolle la baake folo ni aji be banku kilingo kan luwa sifal minu marta banko keno la data fo fula fo saba ni tata banko karo dol la luwa mimbe maranin banko keno la ni funtita tata banko la kara dol la luwa mimbe maranin banko keno la fatata dula dol to banko be mararin si luwa min na wala banko adoti dula dol bije banko luwale be marta banko kenol so bije fulan jango man sauve ma polu soto min yalon ko e garanti ta min sa itandino ko ning plan do be la kam plan do kan fenyanta tarla je min ka itandi ko nyinte kenol so nga digitalization min fo judiciary mbole ke ko to pour Gambia fanam be there is terrestrial mapping mikafo kuluntilal kata santo ka banko be natal from kabo santo ni banko be natal nga mapo da miya lonko abekela digital let keno kene meter o meter gambe banko kanga bebe sumanna la bebe dunna digital system okon once keno register ta call patele tamu nyinde modola kaito te lano la wokam fana senata so wo system o hani sa Mansa Kunda be wala kuoto currently banko la land policy nying be wala develop ka ngaji samba be parela ni wo pareta lual mimbe maralim banko keno la nga wol fanam be falinnale ni falinta ni nga woni nyin terrestrial mapping be ke tanyola tumando batu fitna kuol mimbe kerim banko kenol mara nyaato banko ka ngabe talala magel jannimbe futala woto nak nzamin fono banko dingole wolo nyinte nga duma nyofe kene ko mu ku kole mbale di banko ka bare na sotota wato wati ni nyomo yo manke no alda malte maro nga futal wato mba katala la nga jibe mbol bono la nyoti nyam bare kela nyini karo jabi directly nim Mansa Kunda li so di dami damante Mansa Kunda wala kiti bundal mawo li so buruka Mansa Kunda do ku bunda do sakatuma te lands ministry kilingo wol manya naka kayto di mo kotenna wo kene kilingo la karol naketa amanya nakela min nyanta kala woto dongolan kalamiro yeke o lands fangoto pour ay correct wala min be nyo sabo lala maybe yefuta kiti bundato kiti yo ba jibela le iba lala nyami fo jannimbe parela bar kaytandi la ko ferol be larinne ka make so fitnol mimbe siari banku kenola kula banko kan abe talano la sila o silala mba make so la ngawo ke tariya nyama inshallah.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, time is not on our side. If you have questions, you can engage the minister privately after we have only 3 minutes, unfortunately. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, you and your team, even though Koli and Jai and the SCRs, they have been spectators much of it. Why you all blame nak? You yana nini jude nga finekal. Tenyom Jai ne kunfi. So what can that you will question? Thank you very much, Your Excellency, the Vice President, Mohamed B.S. Jallow, Cabinet Ministers, Rohi John Manjang, Honorable, thank you very much for coming. Mort K. Sise, Honorable, thank you very much. Honorable Abdul Job for your presence here. Senior government officials from the Ministry of Justice, but also from the Ministry of Media, Broadcasting and Information Services as well. We have 2 friends from the diaspora who came purposely to attend the Mansa Kunda. They are fans of the Mansa Kunda, Yamanjai and Pababu Gay. They came from the US and they said they have to come to the Mansa Kunda. We welcome you and thank you for your presence. And everyone else, the media, citizens, everyone out there watching from home in the Gambia, but also in the diaspora. This is the end of this edition of the Mansa Kunda with the Minister of Justice. Thank you once again, your team. In 2 weeks, we'll have the Honorable Minister of Tourism. It's been a very, very good tourism, it's a very good season. It's been booming. So we'll have the Minister of Tourism in 2 weeks' time to talk about the sector and the developments and the improvements and the achievements in the sector, but also his vision for the sector. Time is up, and thank you very much for coming. Until in 2 weeks' time, I wish you all a pleasant weekend. Thank you.